Diplomatic standoff between India and Canada amidst reports that India may be set to ask Canadian diplomats to pack their bags as it downsizes the Canadian mission in India to bring parity with Indian diplomatic presence in Canada. Is Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau sending out a message of reconciliation? That's the big question, as he said Canada is not looking to escalate the situation with India, and also that Canada is looking for private talks with India to resolve the situation. Remember Trudeau's allegations against India in the killing of Canadian citizen Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who India has declared a Khalistani terrorist, had sparked off a sharp diplomatic exchange. Let's play out for you a compilation of Trudeau's comments over the past month.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Our top priorities have therefore been, one, that our law enforcement and security agencies ensure the continued safety of all Canadians, and two, that all steps be taken to hold perpetrators of this murder to account.
As I said on Monday, there are credible reasons to believe that agents of the government of India were involved in the killing of a Canadian on Canadian soil. That is something of the utmost and foundational importance in a country of rule of law, in a world where international rules-based order matters. We have a rigorous and independent justice system and robust processes that will follow their course. And we call upon the government of India to engage with us to move forward on getting to the truth of this matter. We're not looking to escalate. As I've said, we are going to be doing the work that matters in continuing to have constructive relations with India through this extremely difficult time.
So what do we make out of the latest comments and what's happening behind the scenes? To understand that better, joining us this evening, Meera Shankar, former Indian ambassador to the United States, Daniel Boardman, senior correspondent of The Telegraph, Charlotte Littlewood, head of the UK-India Desk for International Sustainability, and Dr. Zachary Paikin from the Institute of Peace and Diplomacy in Canada. We are also joined by Seema Sirohi as well. But first to you, Dr. Zachary Paikin. What do you make of Trudeau's latest comment? Should this be seen as a definitive one, sending out a message of reconciliation?
I don't think that these are necessarily latest comments. I think that the position of the Trudeau government from the beginning of this entire ordeal has been pretty clear, which is that Canada does not want to escalate the situation. The question is, does Canada know how to navigate this situation in a way that does not escalate? And what incentives does India also have to escalate or not to escalate? I'm hoping that both sides will be able to find a way to resolve this dispute in a de-escalated fashion. It is in the interest of both countries ultimately to do so. That is, of course, if both countries retain, that same perspective of their bilateral interests that they had in past decades. What I'm concerned about, obviously, as a Canadian who believes that our country has a great interest in maintaining strong relations and deepening our relations with India, is that India has begun to emerge as a major power, is going to be throwing its weight around a little bit more in the pursuit of broader interests, and that relations with Canada will no longer be seen as significant as they once were. And that's something that we Canadians are going to have to wrestle with.
Right. Meera Shankar, how do you see these comments play out? How would the Indian establishment be looking at these comments?
Well, these comments are certainly more constructive. And I would hope, as the previous speaker said, that both sides can take a pause and try to deal with these issues through a discrete dialogue to resolve outstanding problems. I don't think it is in the interest of either side to conduct megaphone diplomacy on an issue like this. And while Canada is not a major trading partner, they are a resource-rich country, and we have need for resources. There are several things which we actually import from Canada. And there are things which Canada also needs from India in terms of their whole new Indo-Pacific strategy, where they have joined the United States in seeking to provide a better balance in this region. And India would be a natural partner in this process. So I do hope that both sides can approach this issue with cooler heads and deal with it in a way which is sensitive to each other's concerns. From our side, there have been concerns that perhaps, domestic political compulsions seem to provide a license for glorification of violence or incitement to violence. And perhaps I was told that's not really a crime in Canada. So maybe you need to look also at the changes that might be required on both sides to deal with this issue.
Daniel Boardman, is there something that's happened behind the scenes which is possibly allowed for some kind of rethink? Or do you believe, as it was pointed out earlier, that this is consistent with what his position has been?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I will confess, I do not have Justin Trudeau's phone number. Chrystia Freeland does not call me for my advice. If she did, we might not be here. So I don't have any behind-the-scenes super knowledge of Canadian foreign affairs and what they're thinking. But I do see this as a good move. This is the first good foreign affairs, foreign policy move in Canada since 2015. It's smart to come out. Canada has taken a step down, right? We started this. We threw the first punch, and then we gaslit India saying we don't want to escalate by making it worse and spitting in their eye. This is smart. This is us. It might be seen as a sign of weakness, but we're taking a step back, sort of coming, and we want to talk privately. Now, is any of this going to really be solved permanently without Canada seriously addressing the Khalistani issue? One, running around threatening to kill and hurt Hindus and Indians, and two, the influence they have in the actual parliament right now. So those are the big issues to solve this, let's say. But short term, this is, a smart move from Canada to sort of take a step back, be seen as more reasonable, go to India with sort of an olive branch, let's say. What those talks will be behind the scenes, who knows? Will anything come of it? Who knows? But if it is finally a step in the right direction, I think that's something good for everyone. And if India plays this right, it can parlay this into a bit of a win. Canada can parlay this into a bit of a win, and work to, again, as my colleagues have said, a bilateral solution that puts us back on good footing. Because the Canadian people do want to be allies with India, and they're all very confused with what's happening now. A lot of Canadians just don't even know what the Air India bombing is, and it's the worst terrorist attack in our country. So there is sort of a burgeoning awakening, and the Canadian public is very, very concerned with what's happening. The Khalistanis in our parliament, they're having a great time.
Right.
The rest of the country, not so much.
I wish we knew who Justin Trudeau was talking to know what's happening behind the scenes. But a quick question before I go to Seema Sirohi, to Meera Shankar. How much of this is potentially you would see linked to the report that of parity in diplomatic missions and the possibility that some Canadian diplomats may be asked to pack their bags from India?
Well, I think that really won't be the key determinant. I think that's India pushing back. But at the same time, I think our External Affairs Minister has been in Washington, which should be concerned because both countries, Canada is an alliance partner, India is a close strategic partner, and I think Washington would not like to see this escalate, in a manner which causes a kind of deepening rift between the two countries. And our External Affairs Minister would have had an opportunity to convey the perception of the Indian government on the episode. I think he also took a relatively moderate stance in Washington, basically repeating that this is not the policy of the government of India, and B, that if any specific evidence or information is provided, we will look into it.
Okay.
I think he also took the tone down a bit, and so have the Canadians. And if this is a precursor to both sides, beginning a discreet dialogue, I would welcome it. As I said, I think it's not in the interest of either side to let this escalate. But yes, it has brought the issue of support for Khalistan, and in some cases, support for violence, to the public imagination in Canada, which really Canadians were not very aware of this.
Okay, important point that you make there in terms of what it's brought to the forefront. Seema Sirohi, as we go forward, do you believe that this is something that is going to blow over? Are we seeing the first act in possibly resolving this and keeping this away? Or do you believe that this is going to be something that's going to linger on?
I think it's going to linger on for a while. It's not going away until Canada takes some sort of visible or concrete steps. I think it's very clear that the issue has been compartmentalized. It's been separated from at least the US-India bilateral relationship. I also suspect that Washington has told Ottawa to sort of dial it down. I don't think Washington was happy that Prime Minister Trudeau went public, and it's put the US in a very delicate position. What the Indian foreign minister did, and it was very important here in Washington, was to give like a diaspora politics 101 to his American counterparts. Because, like many Canadians, many Americans don't know the background to this problem. They have no idea about the Kanishka bombing. They have no idea about, all the sort of violent activity that goes on. So I think India is playing hardball for the moment. This whole idea of like asking 41 Canadian diplomats to leave the country was to put pressure on Trudeau. Trudeau is getting pressure from the Indian diaspora as well. So his other shoe is pinching now.
Okay.
They want to go to India. They want to be able to travel to India for the holiday season, wedding season, etc.
Okay.
Now, there are no visa services. Why? Because Indian diplomats are unsafe. That's what the foreign minister said very clearly. Okay. Smoke bombs had been thrown at the Indian mission. There were posters and threats to assassinate them. I mean, this is a G7 country, as he said. This is not cool at all. So I think India would be looking for some steps that are more concrete than this kind of public backing down.
Okay, important points that you make there, but between September and October, at least the antagonism seems to be reduced much in terms of statements. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. As you point out, there could be other actors in the play, several other factors in the play, including that of United States. Thank you all for joining us and sharing your thoughts on that. We'll keep a close watch on how those ties develop.